Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, Google, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
and Peter. Episode 52, recorded on December 19th, 2019. Google to kill the Cloud Pod if it's not the number one podcast by 2023.
Boo.
How's it going, guys? By the way, did either of you see the amazing new newsletter that went out on Monday?
I did not.
It's a trick question because I know you're both not subscribed. But if you were subscribed, you would have been amazed at our amazing new show notes that are now being sent out to you via email on Monday mornings to recap whatever the last episode of the show was. And if you subscribe today on recording day, you can get that next week when it ships on Monday. So definitely something new to check out. If you don't want to wait for the newsletter awesomeness and you want to read our show notes when we drop the show, you can do that as well whenever the show in your podcast player of choice, or go to the website and read our fantastic show notes brought to us by our friends over at Podreacher who are doing a great job. So super excited about them. They look great.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Much better than I would ever have done or had the time to do. So the power of outsourcing as you get bigger as a podcast is at play.
Yeah.
And I'll eventually convince Jonathan one day to outsource the editing, but I don't know. Maybe something.
Maybe.
I
don't know. I like having him in there. I like having a little.
I do sort of like having him there because he does keep us honest. And although I was listening to the show on the way home tonight, and there's a section where I was reading the article out loud that I was trying to find the information someone had asked, and he didn't cut that out. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just go with it.
It's a natural feel.
It did feel a little natural. It was fine. Don't piss off the editor. That's what I've learned. Well, anyways, it's almost Christmas time, so this is our last episode of 2019. Because we're going to take a little bit of a break because Christmas falls right on top of our recording days. And so, we'll talk to you guys again in January. But, it's been a fun year. It's been a roller coaster.
Yep. Today was my last day at work for 2 weeks, so.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Who approved that? No, I'm just kidding.
The benefits of being an individual contributor.
Yes.
There you go.
The advantage versus management, where I'll be working through the whole holidays. Although people keep asking, like, where are you going for the holidays? And I'm like, no, this is the best 2 weeks ever to work. Because, number one, the traffic is non-existent. So it's like a 20-minute commute to the office versus the normal hour it takes me. And then I can get all kinds of stuff done that I don't normally get done. Like last year, I actually learned a little bit of Golang programming because I had the free time.
Sweet.
So, you can get all kinds of stuff done during the Christmas break if you decide not to go lay on a beach. So.
Yeah, it's like working either at 10 o'clock at night or 5 in the morning without being tired to do it.
Well, there's been some news since reInvent. This started out with the JEDI contract. Lots of interesting things have been happening in that world since we last recorded general news. The analysts think that there are questions over whether Microsoft can deliver on JEDI at all. And according to at least one official in the DoD, Microsoft won that JEDI deal without the capabilities to deliver on the contract. Jassy, in many of his interviews during reInvent and post-reInvent, has said that he believes a significant amount of political interference was involved, including pointing to previous wins at the CIA as evidence that they can meet the government's requirements. And then there's growing evidence that maybe Microsoft is slowly gaining some market share at Amazon's expense, but Jonathan and I kind of talked, we don't think that's necessarily the case. But overall, it's very interesting. Jassy was also quoted to say, if you do a truly objective and detailed apples-to-apples comparison of the platforms, you don't end up in the spot where that decision was made to go Azure. Very, very interesting. Lots of news here. We've linked to several articles in regard to this. The headline from the Register, though, is my favorite. Trump photon torpedoed our 10 billion JEDI dream because he hates CEO Jeff Bezos.
Tell it like it is.
Tell it like it is, the Register. I always love that. And actually, Amazon actually called out the item that we always talked about here, which was the really weird recusal by Secretary Esper, where we said it was a little weird that he recused himself. And then a week later, they announced the deal, and Amazon calls this whole process another unprecedented and bizarre attempt to rewrite the factual record, and usually a process tainted by the president's intervention.
Excellent.
There's the one thing I struggle with is they don't, like Jassy, I didn't see anywhere where he actually mentioned the specific things that Microsoft couldn't deliver on. I understand that he believes that his platform would win in an apples-to-apples comparison, but there's a difference between being the best for the job and being able to do it at all. And so if you're going to
did you read the 103-page appeal that Amazon wrote to the DoD about the poor evaluation decisions, as well as points out Trump's interfered? Because in the 103-page appeal, there are several examples that they point out.
Where Well, no, I did not do that.
I'm reading a page every night, right before bed.
Puts you right to sleep.
Yeah. Then I'm mad at the editor who wrote that article and didn't include one of those examples.
Well, yeah. We'll talk about fun article writing in a little bit here. But moving on from Jedi, but that battle will continue into 2020. So we'll continue to keep you updated on the Jedi contract for those of you. Right before reInvent, Larry and Sergey announced that they are leaving as CEOs of Alphabet and leaving it to Sundar Pichai's good leadership. So now there will be one CEO over both the Alphabet and Google company. Kind of going back to the old way it used to be, just with a new corporate entity in place. I suspect this is because they're a little bit less concerned about monopoly threats that they were worried about when they did that initially. So it's an interesting change. I don't think it really changes a lot day to day for Google Cloud. I don't think it changes a lot for Alphabet and what they're doing, but it does end the mark of an era with Larry and Sergey kind of moving on to greener pastures elsewhere.
Good for them. I don't know how they stick around for so long as it is. That must be exhausting.
I would just look at all the zeros in my bank account and be like, why am I here?
Yeah. That too.
Where are they going to retire to? That's the question.
Maybe they'll buy that island from Larry Ellison in Hawaii.
I think Mark Zuckerberg's too close to that.
Well, Larry has announced that Safra Catz will now be the sole CEO of Oracle. This was also announced during the earnings call, where revenues were up 1% from the same quarter last year, but overall revenues or profits on those revenues were down quite a bit, with the stock dropping in after hours at 3%, and then the stock has been trending downward ever since that was announced. And basically, apparently, without NetSuite, the company would actually be shrinking. So the NetSuite acquisition was a good move by Larry and team to get that in the door before their other growth started to slow down. So Oracle's not in a good place right now, you guys.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that that's happening.
No, not at all. Me either. Cloud and on-premise licenses were down 1.13 billion or 7% from the same quarter a year ago.
I wonder how much of that is Amazon turning off their Oracle databases.
I hope Amazon wasn't paying 1.13 billion.
Well, I'd really like to know what of that 1.13 billion, what percent of that is from new workloads and not re-upping or growing existing workloads that are on the platform. Almost zero.
It's got to be close to zero.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of anybody recently going to a new Oracle database solution being excited about it.
Yeah.
Might be a rough 2020 for Larry. We'll see. Well, moving on to Amazon news. Oh, sorry. Yes,
that's okay. No, I was just going to say, speaking of someone who I'm shocked hasn't retired.
Yeah, you should have retired a long time ago. On to Amazon news. So the most important story of the entire week to me, and only me, is that the Seattle Seahawks, which is my team, have decided to use Amazon to shape the NFL game strategy. So they'll be using apparently machine learning and AI and a combination of the NFL next-gen stats with their own internal data for a data warehouse to identify new ways to beat the competition. And they plan to leverage recognition to identify and track opposing players and give its coaches better understanding of their opponent's strategies. So, as a Seahawks fan, I am super jazzed.
No, I'm super jealous. I've been actually trying, totally unsuccessfully, to get a hold of someone at the 49ers to see if we could help them do something similar. And so if any Niner employees are listening to this podcast, please call Foghorn. And
if they didn't turn off the podcast and discuss after they found out I was a Seahawks fan. So.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I wonder if you could ever get to a place where you could have a machine learning system sort of live coach players into tactics during a game.
So many ideas in this area that will not bore our listeners, but...
I imagine there's amazing things you can do with statistics and with machine learning and AI and, looking at different play strategies. I'm sure there's really cool stuff, but the problem is that the computer probably has more in creativity than the players can actually execute.
Yeah, but imagine you got cameras on the entire field. The machine could actually spot the beginning of a play and radio to the other team to say, hey, they're about to do this.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And I imagine there'll be new rules sometime in the NFL and other leagues about how you can use machine learning or AI as competitive or not competitive.
Yeah.
Well, whatever those rules are, I'm sure the Patriots will break them.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
I mean, if you model the teams with something like this, though, you don't even need the people anymore. You can just do artificial games, in VR.
There was a movie with Hugh Jackman, and it was robot fighting, and that was kind of the whole thing. And it was a great movie, but it was an interesting concept.
Real steel.
It's real steel. Yeah.
But it was almost exactly like BattleBots. If
Yeah.
you've ever watched that. Just way more impressive than BattleBots.
Yeah, way more impressive.
Well, I guess VR would be a lot safer for the players.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it would definitely avoid the next issue. So the NFL has apparently partnered with Amazon as well for their data-driven player safety initiative. Apparently, they currently employ about 17 employees that look over 100,000 helmet impacts manually. And so they said there must be a better way. Well, I guess there is. And that's where Amazon Services is not going to be using recognition to help the NFL with their AI, ML, and computer vision. They'll be able to create a digital athlete. They'll be able to stream and analyze hits and how they impact the player. And then with those models of the player, they can determine based on physical attributes which risk factors are different for each player. And so if they see a hit that is particularly in a risk factor for that virtual player, they can then maybe take a different action on the field to protect that player. So there's some really cool ideas that they're going to be playing with Amazon's help, and I think that's really cool. There's a quote here from their lead doctor. We have so much data that we're able to create an evaluation of what's happening to the players and what they're experiencing. By having that, we can come up with something called the digital athlete, which is essentially a virtual representation. Through that virtual representation, we start to understand how any of these factors influence the dimensions of performance and injury. So NFL's getting pretty big into the AWS space, which is interesting because there's all those Surface tablets on the sidelines from Microsoft
really.
sponsorship. So a little bit interesting there.
Do you remember when that first happened? They did that huge sponsorship and the announcers kept mistakenly calling them iPads.
Yes. And it was a problem for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then the very first time a player got angry and threw his Surface down and shattered it, that was headline news. It was great. Anyways, Andy Jassy had an interview around how he plans to compete in the multi-cloud space. The interview laid out why he thinks Amazon is better positioned thanks to its own unmatched experience running cloud services at a very large scale, which this is actually my biggest argument for why Amazon is way far ahead of everyone else. Andy also points out that customers are confused about relative growth rates, pointing to the fact that Amazon is the only one who breaks out pure Amazon revenue costs versus the competition, which are typically blended. And he pointed out to a large number of customers that have all gone all in on AWS and continues to grow every year. And he highlights the complexity of making developers make the shift from on-premise to cloud and complicate it further with multi-cloud. So really interesting article, great takes, and you can get into the mind of Andy about what he thinks about multi-cloud.
Exactly. The way we're going to compete in multi-cloud is to tell everybody not to do multi-cloud.
Well, if you pretend it doesn't exist, that solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I like about Outpost, though, is that it's on-prem, but it's still the same API. It's still the same services that you can get in any other availability zone, whereas nobody else really has that.
Yeah, I love all of the things he says. It's just all of them point to single cloud.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some Azure Stack and things like that allow you to kind of run a smaller version of Azure on-premise, but they're not quite the same APIs. So I agree with you, Jonathan. They're not the same, but there are similar technologies.
Hey everyone, Jonathan here. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the cloud consulting gurus at Foghorn for helping make the Cloud Pod possible. These folks truly get it. Cloud consulting experts since 2008, they are premier tier partners with AWS, Google Cloud Platform Silver, and Microsoft Azure partners. From multi-cloud to containers to moving full production workloads to the cloud under the tightest compliance, Foghorn's team of full-stack cloud engineers have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and are ready to share their experience with you. If you're in the market for some talent to supplement your team, visit www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. Foghorn, the promise of cloud delivered.
Well, during a reInvent, there was a hackathon, and that hackathon, the winning team made a key contribution to the Game Changer charity. Game Changer is a nonprofit charity that helps children with critical illnesses who they play video games on Twitch, and as they play those video games, you donate money to them to help for care and all kinds of things. And one of the winning members of the team is here to talk about how he won the hackathon, and that is, of course, Jonathan. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell us more, if I didn't butcher that too badly. This is your win last year at the hackathon, so congrats to you and the team, and also Peter and the Foghorn team. I think you guys are involved as well.
Yeah.
Peter, were you on the team, or was it just Matt who was on the team?
I was not on the team this year. I was on the team the previous year, but not
That's right,
for
the
this
previous
one.
year. So Matt Cohen, who's been on the show in the past, was on the team as well. Jonathan, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, it was a really interesting hackathon. It was the third one that I've done, and we kind of went there with a view on winning. And so we had our strategy planned out from the start. We had a team of 5, I think. Let me count them. There's Anthony, myself, Tamil, Matt, and Taylor. Yeah, that's 5. And we sort of divided up the roles. One was going to work on the demo for most of the day. One was going to work on cool stuff, which was going to be our edge over everybody else who was working on just the regular project. And the project itself wasn't particularly interesting, but it's one that we thought we could win at, which was to actually build a kind of a test harness to load test what they built for the Twitch integration. And what they were going to do is, whenever somebody clicked on screen to make a donation, they would stream that to all the Twitch screens. So you kind of get like a scrolling of people's names and the amounts they donated. And so we kind of knocked that out fairly quickly, and it left us the rest of the day to kind of work on the cool thing, which was this mosaic. I kind of came up with the idea slightly accidentally to sort of take the images of all the Twitch users who were making donations and kind of piece them together into a mosaic. And originally the mosaic was just going to be pictures of the people, because everyone likes to see themselves. Everyone wants to be famous. And then I was kind of Googling around, and I found a Python library which would actually turn the thumbnails of people into a different image. And so the more donations you got, the smaller each image would get, and you kind of fill out the entire logo of the campaign or something like that. So yeah, that's what we built. We kind of struggled a little bit. We all had Macs, and we needed to compile some of these graphic libraries to upload to Lambda, and that was a bit of a struggle. In the end, we kind of pivoted away from Lambda, and we used ECS instead. But yeah, it was all in all, it was a really good experience. I got to say, I'm so happy to actually see something come out of a hackathon and actually be usable and actually go into production. So I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, that's actually one of the really cool things, because they've been doing this hackathon every year of reInvent. They've always been really good ideas. Nothing's ever made it to production, and it was cool that they took this idea, you guys came up with it, and they brought in some interns from one of the local universities, and they kind of fleshed it out and really finished it, and that launched at reInvent, which was really awesome. And I donated a little bit of money. It was cool. It's a cool concept, cool idea. Always good to give back. So
yeah,
Game Changer Charity. Check it out on Twitch if you watch games.
Yeah, so they actually provide an integration that you can add to your Twitch channel, which pops up the donation buttons at the bottom of the screen to make it easy for your viewers to donate.
Well, nice job, Jonathan. Congrats to you and the team last year.
Yeah, thanks. We decided not to compete this year. We didn't want to, win 3 years in a row.
Someday you'll have to tell us your secrets to winning a hackathon. So.
We will. We'll do it. I think we should do an episode on how to win a hackathon.
Yeah.
So, being the market leader in the space, Amazon occasionally gets a little bit of abuse. And in this time and age, the abuse typically comes from President Trump. But this time, the breach came from the friends at the New York Times. They wrote a lovely hit piece on Amazon where they accused Amazon of strip mining open source for their competitive game. They highlighted the ongoing lawsuit between Elastic and the trademark of Elasticsearch. And one of the funny parts of the article is the New York Style Guide requires that any abbreviation has a period between each letter. So all of the AWS marks for A period, W period, S period throughout the entire article, which is just very off-putting as you read through this. So that's a little bit of a fun poke at that process. But this increased fueled scrutiny of Amazon and whether it's abusing its market dominance is engaging in competitive power. And apparently there were 7 CEOs of prominent open source software companies that met and discussed the idea of bringing an antitrust lawsuit against the giant. They said they did not proceed because they felt it would take too long. The reality is they just didn't have the money to do it, is my guess.
Yeah, most likely.
Because that would be a very long, very lengthy thing. And so now they're kind of waiting on the DoD to kind of come in and maybe do its own investigation. There's some interesting quotes here in the article. Maria DV said, Amazon Web Services' success is built on strip mining open source technology. Michael Howard, the chief executive of MariaDB, said he estimates that Amazon made 5 times more revenue from running MariaDB software than his company generated from all of its businesses. And then another engineer from Amazon, former engineer, AWS engineer, said he indicated he built a product to aggregate logs in a direct attack against Splunk, and that Splunk actually saw a preview of it before it was announced and requested that it not be shown on main stage, but was not happy about the announcement. And then Redis Labs, VP of marketing, or former VP of marketing, Lena Joshi, said it was a love-hate relationship. On one hand, most of our customers ran on AWS, so it was in our interest to be tightly integrated with them. At the same time, we knew they were taking away our business. Of course, not everyone in this article took him as a threat. They did quote Ali Gojdi, the chief executive of Databricks, a San Francisco startup uses artificial intelligence to analyze data. He said that he doesn't see them using shenanigans to stop them. which I wonder when they interviewed him.
Oh yeah, was that before the SageMaker announcements?
This must have been before reInvent, because after the SageMaker stuff, I thought that was a direct attack against Databricks in a pretty big way. So that was a bit interesting. Amazon, of course, then responded to this article. Basically said it was a skewed and misleading perception, and the reporter had a story he wanted to tell and didn't let the facts get in the way of his story. And then they had 3 arguments against this. One was being that, first, Amazon has a large and vibrant, successful partner community. Second, the story is already taken about OSS projects and their beliefs around OSS, and that these are open source projects that you can do whatever you want to with them because they're open source. They also then highlighted their contributions to several OSS projects, including Java and Chromium, Apache, Lucene, etc. And then thirdly, the audit commonly leaves with the crux of the issue with respect to enterprise search or Elasticsearch and OSS. Customers use open source because it's supposed to be open, available to run anywhere, and easily used on premises and in the cloud with whichever provider customers choose. So not the best argument back, but I definitely agree with them that it was a bit of a hit piece. There were several people who were interviewed apparently for the article. Were talking on Twitter and said they were trying to explain to the reporter that there was a lot of things Amazon was doing to help open source, but that they just either were not quoted in the article or they only quoted the pieces that they said that were negative towards Amazon. So in this world of apparently fake news against Amazon, this is an interesting story.
And it's not the first article in the New York Times, so I'm sure it won't be the last article that the New York Times have published, which are fairly anti-Amazon. Another one caught my eye recently, which was about they kind of claimed that Ring had been hacked, and people's video were being exposed, and some this hacker had said creepy things to their kids or something like that. And that may be true, but it wasn't a hack of Ring. The customer just lost their credentials. They were exposed in another breach, and then somebody systematically scanned all the services they could think of with those credentials and found a Ring account. It doesn't mean Ring has been hacked, and I think the way it was presented by the New York Times was really underhanded.
Bloomberg had that article about the hardware that they said was compromised by the Chinese that never got retracted. And lots of very interesting hit pieces. And then it just sort of undermines their credibility, and then that's why other people can then undermine their credibility about other things that are actually real. So it's a little bit unfortunate that there was a bias in that article.
Yeah, but gotta find a news source that isn't biased nowadays. Good luck.
Moving on to Azure. The first story for Azure is and these guys are a little bit quiet while we're at reInvent. There's a few news articles, but nothing that was earth-shattering. But first one is the multi-protocol access to the data lake storage is now generally available. So this allows you to use the Blob Storage API or the Azure Data Lake Storage API to access the same data in a single storage account. This allows you to store that data in one place and access it with any method you want to. So integrations exist between the Data Lake for Stream Analytics, the IoT Hub, the Azure Event Hubs, Azure Data Box, and Logic apps. All through the same user interface or different APIs, but all to the same data. And you can also tier data between hot and cool tiers. So I think this is actually a really interesting idea. Something I would like to kind of see other providers make as well is, why do I do any type of translation between different data format types? Just give me the different APIs that access the same data and do the transformation as I need it. And then I can use that application any way I want to. This is actually a pretty good feature. I'm kind of excited about this one.
Yeah, I still can't put the use case in my head on how I'm going to use it or how we would use it, but it sounds intriguing.
It seems very specific to Azure, though. If you've got your data in blob storage, then this just seems to be kind of plugins for other services to get the data out from there. They're doing the data transformation themselves, presumably. It doesn't seem like, or am I missing something here? Maybe
I'm missing. Maybe it is really just a rebranding of existing services. But I guess it's you're looking at it from the picture of this is just people accessing S3. And accessing the data, and any service can go and do that. I think this is at least the way I read the article and the way they describe the use cases is it's more you don't have to do data transformation. So if you need it as like a SQL query, you could run a SQL query against it versus you could write an object fetch or metadata fetch object type thing. So that's how they kind of described it. But you might be right. It might be more just.
They shouldn't have used the word storage. It's not a feature of data lake storage. It's integration services. Which is really, and that's great because now you can pull the data from anywhere. Because we always said that storage on Azure was overly complex. So this kind of goes some way to simplifying. You can put all your data in one place now and get it anywhere for any of the Azure services. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Their branding needs some work though.
Azure Data Box. You put your data in the box. You wrap the box for Christmas. It's how it works. You can now achieve operational excellence in the cloud with Azure's advisory capabilities. They've added a new recommendation category called Operational Excellence, which is a terrible name. This will help you apparently optimize your cloud process and workflow efficiency, resource manageability, and deployment practices Some of the recommendations you might get from this include things like you should create an Azure Service Health Alert to be notified of Azure issues. You can design your storage accounts to prevent hitting the maximum subscription limits. You can ensure you have access to cloud experts at all times. You can repair invalid log alert rules, and you can follow the best practices for Azure policies, including tag management, geocompliance, and VM audits for managed disks. And after you read all that, you'll realize that this was just a filler article to make the noise and make some noise and reinvent. It's a little silly.
I think so. And to be fair, it's just trusted advisor for Azure.
Basically.
Only 5.5 years later than AWS implemented the same thing. So I think, yeah.
It's really interesting, some of the articles that these guys dropped during reInvent. Just like, we want our name to be out there. We don't want to be completely silent, but we're not going to announce anything that matters because we don't want to be totally ignored. And then the final Azure story for this week is the new general availability of the proximity placement groups. We had talked about this previously on a show when it came out of beta, and we've now made an editorial decision here at the CloudPod that we are going to skip preview or beta releases of features unless they're really revolutionary, like the ARM chip processors or something like that, or if it gets announced at, of course, a keynote at one of the main events. So we will cover these when they go GA from now on, because this went beta about 60 days ago, roughly a month and a half ago, and so we just talked about this. And while they did add a few new features, which I'll cover here in a second, we felt we don't feel like there's really a need to cover these same stories twice in that short of a time frame. So we're just gonna move to when they go GA. We'll talk about them here on the show in the future, but because we already talked about this one before the editorial policy change, we will cover this again. So this is the ability to put resources near other resources to get better latency. It's a very interesting construct, and there are some very, very key HPC use cases that need that. They did add a few new features since they went into preview. Those include is now fully supported in their portal. You can move existing resources to and from a proximity placement group. Before you had to create them as part of the deployment. It now support SAP HANA apps, and you can measure the virtual machine latency quickly and easily via their APIs.
I like that you can move things in and out of the group, though.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because,
super neat.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that EC2 is simpler by not live migrating VMs to new hardware, but it would be such a nice feature to be able to, not have to shut things down to move them off bad hardware or to move them in and out of groups and things like this. It's pretty cool. But again, I mean, I really can't think of a use case where latency of less than a millisecond is going to be critical too.
The only ones I can think of are typically going to be HPC related, and so there's maybe in high-speed trading transaction computer systems you want that, but that's also requires you to be physically close to the stock exchange computers too.
Right.
So there's more complexity to that than just a data center.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, moving on to Google, they were also not completely quiet during reInvent. They had a couple interesting announcements. The first one, they added some new capabilities to their WAF. These new capabilities include geo-based access controls, new pre-configured WAF rules, and a custom layer 7 filtering policies using custom rules.
Yay!
So the custom rules allow you to create advanced match conditions to filter incoming traffic across attributes and parameters from layer 3 to layer 7. The geo-based rules are the normal things you see, like I want to restrict countries that we don't trust from accessing our systems for regulatory compliance or copyright or other business need. And then the pre-configured WAF rules are exactly what you expect them to be, which are easy ways to block common OWASP and SQL injection type attacks. All these new alerts raise themselves to the SAC console, which is the security console for Google. You can get real-time notifications on allowed traffic spikes and increasing deny ratios as well.
Yeah, that's neat. I like the fact that you can report on things that traffic that was denied.
Yeah, and custom rules is almost a requirement for most more advanced workloads.
Yeah. Amazon, listen up. Layer 7 filtering.
Well, they have that in their WAF too. But,
yeah, they do. But they don't have. But all we got to do is turn their WAF upside down and inside out, and then we'll have layer 7 egress filtering, and then I will win in
that's right.
predictions.
That's right. Yes. Soon we'll get that. The Stackdriver logging has a new integration with Visual Studio Code. The new Cloud Code Logs Viewer plugin allows you to simplify and streamline the diagnostic process with 3 new features. First, that integration into VS Code, so you can see your logs and your output of logging right in IDE. New customizable log viewer to structured data and colorize the output, filter by severities, provide streaming capabilities and time zone conversions. And then they have several Kubernetes-specific filtering capabilities in that as well, including filtering on specific namespaces, deployments, pods, or containers. So those are pretty nice to bring it right to the IDE for you, so you don't have to leave the IDE at all. to debug your code.
I'm going to have to suck it up and install Visual Studio now.
Yes, Visual Studio Code's not bad. I know you're opposed on principle to a Microsoft product, but the nice thing is Visual Studio Code is free. You don't have to have a license. It's only if you want to use the big Visual Studio.
No, I did like Visual Studio. It's a good product.
Yeah, Visual Studio is pretty good. I prefer it over Xcode.
Most large organizations run 6 or even more monitoring tools. Each of them uses a mixture of data collection techniques from technology providers, open source communities, or custom integrations, and maintaining dozens of integrations across these tools can be a significant investment. Blue Medora introduces BindPlane, not another monitoring platform, but the industry's first monitoring integration as a service. BindPlane can gather data from over 150 technology data sources spanning your entire organization. Remove or reduce your reliance on expensive monitoring and SIM solutions by sending log data to Google Stackdriver, New Relic, or Azure Monitor. Check out the extensive list of integrations, all provided at no additional cost. Learn more and sign up for a free trial by visiting bluemedora.com/cloudpod. The link's available in our show notes, and as a bonus for CloudPod listeners, Blue Medora are offering Google Compute Platform credits to help get you started. BindPlane. Seamlessly stream hybrid cloud and on-premise metric and log data.
Google has announced the general availability of Data Fusion, which is the bridge data analytics. This is a new feature that allows you to ingest and integrate services that a seasoned data engineer might need. So basically, I can sum this down to as a very high-powered ETL capability. Google Cloud Platform is now FedRAMP High authorized for 17 products in 5 cloud regions, and they've also expanded their FedRAMP Moderate capability to 64 products and 17 cloud regions. So they continue to try to catch up to that JEDI contract, so when the lawsuits are all over, they can say, hey, we can compete now.
Yeah. Well, there's still nothing that says that they can't do the exact same. Even if they leave Azure the winner, there's nothing that says they can't do another single vendor process and hand it off to Google and do another one and hand it off to AWS. And then they've committed $3 million total dollars of their $10 billion budget.
Yeah, it wasn't a single provider, and it wasn't guaranteed $10 billion either, was it?
It's up to $10 billion, right? It's a minimum of $1 million.
Yep.
$1 million. That's what we're arguing about right now.
It costs way more than $1 million to get it settled in court. So actually a well-named service, Jonathan, for a change. The new storage transfer service for on-premise data. This is from Google. The transfer service is a managed solution that lets you move your data without needing to engineer your own custom software or invest in an off-the-shelf solution. And it works simply as this. First, install and start the on-premises software, or the agent, and then go to the Cloud Console and submit directories to transfer to cloud storage. When transferring data, the service will parallelize your transfer across many agents and then coordinate these agents to transfer your data over a secure internet connection to cloud storage. Transfer service for on-premises data also features a fully self-service GUI and a detailed transfer log, so you can create, monitor, and manage transfer jobs with confidence.
This isn't one of their acquisitions, the data migration acquisitions, was it?
It could be. They just rebranded it. That makes sense. It doesn't seem very complicated, but I do appreciate that they named it properly. So, okay.
Yeah, there's no doubting what that does.
Yeah, I have 100% clarity of what the service does. I don't know that I need it, but I have 100% clarity. The big story of the week. So apparently in 2018, Google management, including Larry and Sergey and stuff, had a meeting where they discussed the cloud computing business at the time being run by the former CEO, Diane Green. And they apparently considered the possibility of just exiting the cloud market altogether, and ultimately decided that no, that wasn't the right strategy, and that they would make a valiant effort to get to number 2 by end of 2023. Apparently there was no comment made on what would happen if they didn't get to number 2. But, with Google's track record, I'm not sure this is a good thing to get leaked out into the world in general, based on the fact that they kill most products that don't succeed. So if they consider not being number 2 or higher as a failure for the Google Cloud, I'm not so sure I'm eager to get there. But they did not exactly say that would happen. But it's definitely the sort of implied under the covers commentary here is, what happens in 2023 when they're number 3 still? Do they stop investing at the same level? Do they take a different approach? What happens? Or is that really the end of Thomas Kurian's career at Google if they don't make it by 2023? Lots of questions, really not an article they probably wanted to get out to the world.
I wonder if they did quit, what it would look like. Like, is it just shutting it down, or is it just spinning it off and selling it?
I mean, either, I would assume they would try to sell it because that would make more sense for the customer base, but I wish they had sold Google Reader and they didn't do that either. So
I kind of figured that the Google Cloud was so tightly integrated with their own data centers that it would be very hard for them to break that out and sell it.
Maybe, yeah.
I would imagine it's nearly impossible to do. But Canalys was a research from Canalys basically said that the chances of it hitting the growth to get to number 2 is pretty difficult. With Amazon already at 33% of the global cloud spend and Microsoft at 17%, Google just has 7%. So they had to get 10% more market share in the next basically 3 years to hit that target. So that's pretty ambitious. And the Canalys analyst firm said they didn't think it was possible. So we'll maybe find out what will happen in 2023, and hopefully we're not talking about Google Cloud selling it off to Verizon or some other horrible story. Google, of course, has denied this report. They denied report considering quitting the cloud business. In their statement to SiliconANGLE, they said, simply not accurate, and linked to several blog posts detailing investments in cloud-related infrastructure and sales teams. And of course, the hiring of TK is a good move in boosting enterprise confidence and aspirations. So we will see in 2023, but really a bad article for them. Kind of a moment where they're getting a lot of adoption, a lot of traffic. For someone to even hint the idea that Google might exit the cloud business, and based on the track record and the perceptions of Google basically being a company that kills things, it's really not a story you want to get out in the market.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't do anything for confidence of the consumer.
Yeah, this is a disaster. They got to control this one, and I mean, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if customers are going to expect certain language in longer term commits to ensure that they are that they're going to be around.
Yeah, I would want it based after this, especially after this article.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the impact is to business and stuff. But I did hear someone on Twitter say that they know a CTO who, based on this article alone, just said, nope, we're not going to Google, and pivoted away. So, they hadn't made their final decision yet, but this was just enough of a spooking of the horse to say, nope, we're not doing it. So,
yeah, I really hope it doesn't go that way. Obviously there's going to be one person who makes a decision based on pretty much every single piece of information, whether or not it's valid. But I really hope it doesn't slow down Google's adoption and spook them off, because I think they're doing some cool stuff from a product innovation standpoint.
Yeah, I definitely. I assume that even if they were to start changing their story on cloud, Kubernetes is still going to exist. Like, they're not going to stop investing in Kubernetes. They own. It's too easy for them to make Kubernetes basically be their enterprise play in so many different ways that I just don't see them, getting out of the space completely. But if they did, they'll just double down on Kubernetes in some way and some method that makes a lot of sense. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. We're going on to the final lightning round of the year. And I don't know, Peter, this is your lightning round. So are we resetting after the new year, or is this, we're going to continue the streak? Because right now I'm up by 5. So I'm okay if we keep it here.
I just have to win 5 points to draw at the end of the year. Okay.
Yeah. And by rule, today's is worth 6. No, just kidding.
Well, the guests currently have 5, so maybe I could collaborate with the guests, or form a coalition with the guest, and we'd be even. So this is the deciding point.
Yes. No, I think we should reset for next year to keep things interesting, and I think we should still compete today just for today's.
For sure. Well, I mean, if we say that I already won, but we'll give it an extra point here if you combine the guest and Jonathan together, then I'm okay with this.
No. You won for the year, and Jonathan's shooting here for a little momentum going into next year.
There you go. He's shooting for bragging rights that he is only behind by 4 points. But Jonathan kind of came on strong there the later half of the year. I think he finally clicked into the process here.
Yeah, I started reading the notes ahead of time.
Exactly. Key to success on this one, my friend. Key to success. So.
All right, we're gonna make the lightning round lightning. Here we go. Amazon SQS now supports 1-minute CloudWatch metrics.
Too bad I can't see how much data I have in SQS for 1 minute.
Ooh.
Oh.
Finally, my wife can measure me. Insufficient resolution.
Oh, no.
I'm going to cut that out.
No, don't cut it out. That is freaking brilliant. Alexa for Business adds end of meeting reminders, intelligent room release and meeting room utilization metrics.
All the utilization should say is that there's too many meetings. That's the only number that matters.
55 additional AWS services achieve high trust CSF certification.
Someone out there cares, just not me.
Whole industries care, just not.
I know. I don't work in healthcare right now. So, 5 years ago, I would have cared a lot, but now I don't care today.
It's a good job you're not still in that business. It's been a brutal couple of weeks.
Yeah, that business has been in trouble. So that's a whole different conversation.
Attach multiple elastic inference accelerators to a single EC2 instance.
Fantastic. More ways for the Bitcoin miners to screw up my bill.
Ooh. Amazon EC2 Spot now provides instance launch notifications via Amazon CloudWatch events.
I mean, I would hope that my spot market that is based on pricing would tell me, hey, I'm spinning up right now, so you would know when it's up or down. But I guess, 5 years after spot, it's a good time to get that feature.
I feel like I'm on the losing streak right now. Actually, it's a really cool feature. I think definitely CloudWatch Events is becoming the hub of all things that happen in that you may want to trigger something else from. So it's pretty neat. It used to support SNS notifications, but nobody wants a SNS topic for all this stuff.
Amazon Connect announces AWS CloudTrail support for APIs.
I know there's a lot of people who love Connect. I just don't know enough about it, so I'm sure they're super excited.
DNS resolution for EKS clusters using private endpoints now.
So how did this work before?
It didn't. That's the thing. It didn't.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to connect to a private endpoint for like S3, EKS wouldn't know what to do with it?
No.
It's all about
it's
all about peered VPCs. If you wanted to connect to an endpoint in somebody else's VPC that you peered with, you had no way before of resolving the address for the endpoint because that's the magic DNS that happens within the VPC. So,
but the EKS cluster is in the VPC, wouldn't it?
This is specifically for an EKS cluster in a peered VPC, not your own.
Again, they didn't have this?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it amazing?
Jesus.
AWS Code Build now supports cross-account resource sharing.
Talk about a feature that should have been there too. Like, hey, I'm going to have a central build account where my code is, and then I maybe want to put the artifact somewhere else in someone else's S3 account. It seems like this one should have been there too.
AWS launches ML Embark program to help enterprises adopt machine learning.
I actually heard more about Embark at reInvent. The Embark program has actually been written by most of the data scientist people at Amazon. And their videos and all that are by like their lead engineers on things like SageMaker and all of the tooling. So these training courses that this Embark program uses are very, very high quality, very from the horse's mouth, if you will. So it's a really great set of learning stuff to help you on a journey to learn machine learning.
And speaking of machine learning, I just want to talk about our East Bay meetup that we had. I really enjoyed the presentation by Shashank.
Prasanna.
Yeah. Amazing presentation on all things AI and ML from AWS. So you'd think the Embark program was written by those engineers, but really the machine told them to do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice. Amazon FSx adds enhancements to the AWS Management Console. Specifically, you can now see CloudWatch metrics and add and update tags directly from the console.
These FSx features just make me laugh so much. They're the most ridiculous things, like, we integrate with AD. Oh, really? Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now I can see metrics about how many file puts and writes I had. Oh, really? You didn't have that day one? Oh, thanks. Thank you so much, Amazon. I appreciate it.
Amazon EC2 Fleet now lets you preferentially use available capacity reservations.
This is somebody who was really angry about a bill they got.
Yeah.
It said, you didn't use your available capacity reservation you paid for when you launch your fleet. And so I bet this was a fix for somebody who was very upset.
Yeah. Amazon MQ introduces throughput optimized message brokers.
Am I going to get throughput optimized brokers for Kafka and Kinesis and all the other queuing capabilities, or is this only through MQ, which makes make it much more complicated to decide?
Like, why isn't it always throughput optimized?
Well, that was my question. As compared to storage optimized, memory optimized.
This is the very similar to what they did with step functions, where you lose a bit of durability, but you get much better throughput. So I guess they're not sort of enforcing some consistency of something on the back end just so you get better throughput.
AWS Security Hub integrates with Amazon Detective.
Should have been a launch feature.
AWS CloudFormation updates for Amazon API Gateway, Code Pipeline, S3, IAM, ECS, RDS, ES, and AWS Lambda, and even more.
Amazon ES, huh? Oh.
Congratulations to the CloudFormation team, though. These are basically all the new CloudFormation updates you need for everything that was announced at AWS reInvent, within like the first 2 weeks of them being announced. So really, really nice done on the CloudFormation team. Kudos to you.
There you go. Announcing ICD 10 CM and RX norm ontology linking for Amazon Comprehend Medical.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure this is tied to like their partnerships they do with like Fred Hutchinson and some of the other cancer hospitals out there. Because I mean, this is the names of some of these cancer genes and sequences and drugs they use are very complicated and very specific to ontology and to those sort of things. So I imagine this is a very specific customer need and request that they want to use Comprehend in this way. So I mean, I think it's awesome. I will never use this feature, but for people in that space, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Get to it.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know what ICD is, it's basically the big book of everything that could possibly go wrong with a person. There is a code for everything. If you've got a scratch on your left knee, there's a code for that. If you've got a headache, there's a code for that. And it gets very complicated. And it used to be that hospitals or insurance companies would hire teams of people who would basically memorize vast numbers of pages of codes and things, so that when they read through the patient notes and patients had a particular procedure done, they'd know how to code it for the record, basically. What this is going to allow is for a doctor to start talking about, thinking about, doctors usually use digital recording devices to sort of dictate letters and things. And so what this would do is let a transcription service listen to what the doctor is talking about, or even listen to what a patient is talking about as far as their condition goes, or the treatments that have been carried out. And it will spit out the relevant code instead of actually having to pass this through a team of clinical coders.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. And I was always amazed working in healthcare that people could remember codes. I mean, they've worked in it for years, but they'd remember codes. But ICD releases updates regularly, and so it's always very frustrating when they make a new book because all the codes change.
Just like they add one, they did it alphabetically, and every time they add one, they move all the other ones down by one.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if they'll eventually do this for the DSM-6 as well. That would make sense. That is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health.
Ah, that's right.
Psychologists use.
That just grows and grows and grows on a year-by-year basis.
Yes, it does. But I can see that being interesting as well to help them diagnose mental conditions in patients as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get out of the rat hole zone and back to the web.
AWS Elastic Beanstalk launches the Windows Web Application Migration Assistant.
I mean, I thought that's what Beanstalk was. I mean, it's plugged into Visual Studio, and all .NET developers end up on Elastic Beanstalk typically. I thought it was a migration system.
Windows Web Application now. This is getting rid of all those crappy IIS .NET apps.
Is that what we're doing here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, all right, I'll take
And this
that.
is why people go to Azure, because they run IIS.
Yes,
so
they
this is a good.
Well, they go to Azure for that or for SQL Server.
Excellent.
Amazon SES now enables you to configure DKIM using your own RSA key pair.
Way to take a very simple service, let your security team make it more complicated, and now have to manage keys.
Yeah,
Great.
there you go.
Thank you.
All right, and the winner, the consolation prize, the toilet bowl, the meaningless round goes to the Minuteman.
Nice.
That's so unfair. That means I can't cut that out.
Awesome job, both of you, this year. That was super fun.
It's been super fun. It has been very, very enjoyable. Well, everyone have a wonderful holiday. You probably get this between Christmas and New Year's. A Happy New Year to all of you. And we'll see you all in 2020 for our 2019 recap show. We'll talk about our predictions for 2019 that didn't come true. Jonathan Slack. And we'll cover out what we think is going to happen in 2020 in our first episode back. So we're super excited to do that as we kick off the year in cloud. So thanks a lot, guys.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
See you next year.
See you next year.
That is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting and Blue Medora. Check out our website where you can join our newsletter, Slack team, send feedback, or ask questions at thecloudpod.net, or tweet us at the hashtag #thecloudpod. See you guys next week.